to another 10 p.m. with BK. I'm sorry, it is now officially 10:13 p.m. So as you can see, today is something slightly different. I have with me my senior from school, a fellow Rafflesian, as well as a fellow Singaporean who is currently now in Malaysia, and he's obviously a guest for today's live stream. So just want to welcome David. Hi, David.
Hi, good to see you, BK.
So we were having some. Okay, so that's live. In spite of the preparation and testing and getting on earlier than usual to test out and making sure that things can work properly, sometimes things just don't work. Correct, David?
Yeah, that's very true. It's actually my fault trying to learn this new technology.
No, it's nobody's fault. It's just sometimes when we are trying. In fact, this is in the spirit of what I have been doing so far. This live stream has been about experimentation, testing, doing something even though you have not done it before. So I think this is probably is a good example, right? So in fact, I want to thank David for being my first live stream guest.
Wow,
He
okay,
has, and I just wanted to do this. This is a routine I have to do. David, forgive me for a
right.
short while. I'm going to get to introducing you in a minute. So let's do this first. Today we are on day number 18. Day 18
Wow.
of a 100-day challenge. And obviously we have with us David, who is our very first live stream guest. So he's a special guest today. Now, we do have a topic for you today. And I just want to quickly introduce David because, when I was reading his bio, although we are friends, but when I was reading his bio, it's like, wow, it is quite a privilege to have him with us today. And in fact, I'm just going to quickly go through and introduce you first. So David is actually the founder of Global Leadership Dynamics. He's a global leadership solutions company that focuses on organizational leadership coaching and consulting. I think especially for C-class or C-level executives, which is very, very interesting. Now, when I read a person's bio, I always find that probably the most interesting part is the part where other people say something about you. So I'm just going to read out something that was said about David by somebody that is a mentor of his, somebody who has worked with him for quite some time as well. So this is what the person says, and obviously this is always the good stuff. So David has unusual and truly distinguishing talents in the area of personal leadership development. Deeply knowledgeable about the academic literature, he's essentially a practitioner, and he straddles across cultures and has an uncanny sensitivity and psychological insight into the personality of leaders of any culture. And this person was saying that he feels that David compares with the very best in the industry. I was just listening to somebody talk about this in the coming age, with all this AI and automation and everything. The only way that human beings can outwork, outwit, or outbeat some of these AI and big data and so on is literally our creative mind and our human capital. And I think this is where you really strongly believe in as well, right?
Well, this is actually the kind of work that I am actually doing at the heart of it. It is about being able to mobilize minds. But more importantly than mobilizing minds, I think it's also about mobilizing the heart. And more so, our whole person, when we bring our best self to the kind of things that we are doing, right? Um,
So
so,
I always have I have a very deep respect for people that have a huge passion for what they do. So maybe David, you want to tell the people who are watching us today, what is your passion and what drives you to do what you're doing today, and then maybe give a bit of an overview of what you do, and then people can have a better understanding as well.
right. So the work I do is essentially about coaching leaders, right? So yeah, I think the best way to talk about this is by giving an illustration, right? I can tell you a story of that kind of illustrate the work I do. So I work with this leader who runs an entire business, a conglomerate, a family business that is one of the largest in Southeast Asia. And the interesting thing is that he has been very, very successful in terms of his entrepreneurship. Um, and the thing is, while he's very successful in his business, he seems to be at a point where he wants to go further and delve into the meaning of what he's doing and look for one of better word, a second wind. So that's how we got connected. When he came to me and told me that he feels kind of overwhelmed. He's on all the time, right? He's always thinking, and even before, so he has very little sleep. The work is always on his mind, whether it's some decisions or operations. So he's beginning to question, like, what can be done so that life feels meaningful and is sustainable. So my work with him has a kind of touch on the strategy of his business, but also his whole being in terms of what will give him meaning and what would give him that win to carry on and in fact sort of thrive, right? um, and we have been on this journey for quite some time, and if you know him before this whole engagement and now, the kind of things that he's thinking and the kind of things that he's trying is very different, right? And the more interesting thing is that he's also thinking about succession. Okay. So, in terms of family business, I'm sure you have heard how difficult is it to pass from one generation to another, right? And so he has children in his family who who have grown up, and he has introduced to his family business. However, they kind of feel restricted by what they can do in the organization because he's in control of almost everything, right? Every decision, and the kind of work that they can do. So the key question is, how can they be empowered and have a sense of independence, right? So there was one conversation I remembered where, because I coached both him and some of his family members, the son feels like he's very shattered, and therefore have no sense of feeling alive when he's working in him. He feels like he has lost his whole sense of self and identity. So my work with this business leader was to say, let's explore what is it that you can sort of give your son to do an experiment. At the same time, addressing the concern of yours, which is the loss or to make certain losses, right? He doesn't want his son to have any losses. So, that is actually a big shift for him to, to think about how to empower his son. And amazingly, because he was able to touch on what is it that is really important for him and his son, we were able to work out something where his son was getting into a new line of business, and today his son is actually pretty successful introducing this line of business, right? So that's how he has been letting go as well. And in fact, in letting go, his business is actually growing, right? So this is an illustration of the work that I do. Yeah.
So just to take it one step back for the listeners and people who are watching this, right? My immediate question is, obviously, when people, this is about developing the purpose, the vision, and the leadership of themselves or the company, or even their key, so-called the key appointment holders in a company, right? How do people actually come to you?
Right.
And how do they start finding you? And usually, do you work with individuals or do you work with the whole company per se?
That's exactly, I think, what is differentiating between the kind of coaching work that you probably hear about, that has been described as life coaching or, all sort of names that's given to it. The work that I do has to do with organization development. So it's about building the capacity, not just of the individual leader, but leadership capacity as a part of culture, as part of the organization's capacity to reinvent itself, to become stronger, to be more resilient. So I work at two levels, both at the individual level and at the leadership team level, right? And to address your other question about how do people come to me, I suppose this is where, in this particular line of work, it is largely by word of mouth, right? And while the industry would know us as in, there's not many of us who do this kind of work in the first place, right? Because it is integration of business strategy, of applied behavioral science. At the same time, we also have some background in organization psychology. So, it is largely via the kind of work we do that word gets around, right? And people who are willing to come forward to be coached, right?
Yeah, interesting.
And so,
sorry, you interrupted. Yeah.
Yeah, and so the interesting thing is this, what I was saying earlier about people willing to come forward to be coached. More and more I've discovered that, especially during this pandemic, it has led to a lot of disruptions, right? But at the same time, it has led to a lot of opportunities. So in this period, I actually see more clients than usual because, we are going through a times of change. And to various extent, leaders are feeling, that they need to make very important decisions, how to sustain their companies, and to for certain businesses, actually, this is a golden opportunity for them to grow exponentially. So in this regard, they are making a lot of key decisions where they require very focused kind of sounding board, and leadership can be a very lonely business, right? And so that's this period has been a very interesting period in that sense.
Yeah, I mean in Chinese we have a saying 高处不胜寒. Leaders at the highest point are always very alone, very cold, and usually have to rely on yourself, right? So that's always the biggest challenge for leaders.
Yeah.
So actually I wanted to ask you about the current situation and what the challenges are facing the leaders today, but I guess you kind of answered that. And of course, a lot of industries and companies, I think their biggest challenge now is finding a way to pivot in this current climate such that they can not only make sure they are sustainable, but hopefully at the same time take them up to a much higher level and maybe, like you said, 10x their current level of performance as a company, correct?
I'll give you a story to kind of illustrate this very interesting era. So I'm working with someone in Philippines who has a pretty interesting business in the area of education. So he's in the business of private universities, right? And we all know that during this period, there's various restrictions. So Philippines is actually pretty badly hit, especially Manila where he is. So the students can't go to school, right? So he has to pivot to an online education business. Now, this is a big thing, right? Because it involves change not only internally among his faculty and his management team, how to reorganize the whole business, but more importantly, also the students. Think about it. Not everybody would be able to get access to internet, to the right business connect, the right internet connection, and the right facilities for good online learning. So this and for him, because of all these various consideration, he's essentially overwhelmed to the point where he can't actually be still. And a lot of our work is about getting him to 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 hold his ground and be grounded, and be focused, while thinking about what are the innovation needed, how to navigate all the various key stakeholders in order to convert the school into an online school. So essentially, he became one of the few schools that went online, and actually, that has been a major pivot for him. That today he's actually very successful in that regard. A lot of his businesses now are online education, right?
So
But
you did the pivot in quite a short period of time, right? Because this thing is quite recent and so on.
yeah.
So he managed to pivot in quite a short time.
Mm, mm.
So interestingly, from what you just shared about just now, it seems like not only do you all do coaching and so on, but do you also guide people on kind of like the technical stuff, the infrastructure, maybe even the technology needed for such things? You see the all-in-one package solution from your company?
Yeah, you are asking a very interesting question. Essentially, you are asking, do we have the domain expertise, given the kind of work we do, which is so myriad, right? And the question
Yeah.
is that we don't have the domain expertise. Just like when I was trying to connect with you, I have challenges, navigating some of the technologies. Right? The thing that we provide is to be able to help the leader think through the various considerations that they need to make in order to go forward either with the innovation or to hold the ground in terms of the market that they are trying to build or defend, right? So it is really about applying critical reasoning or critical thinking when we work with leaders. That's one. And the second is really about connecting to the heart. If you think about it, most of us are very good with our rational mind. In fact, since school days, we are trained, to use our rational mind. Right? But not all of us has the capacity to tap into our emotional world, which is very interesting because if you think about it, Einstein has said it before that the intuitive mind is the master, is the one that helps create the world, and the rational mind is what supports it. But in this world, we have reversed the order, where the rational mind has become the driver, and our intuitive mind, has taken a secondary role. So my work, is to be able to integrate both. Um, so that is what I mean by leadership, is to bring that both worlds together.
Yeah, that is actually very fascinating. So perhaps one last quick question for you is while we are talking about corporate and C-class executives and so on, right? But some of us listening here, in a sense, right? Leadership is I've always believed that when you are a team of one, you lead yourself. When you're a team of 5, you lead 5. When you have a team of 1,000, you lead 1,000, right? So what would be some of the tips or books or any recommendation that you have for people like us who may not be leading huge organizations or companies, but yet still would like to develop, say, our own leadership skills?
Right. I think the 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 thing is this: it is always about the capacity to develop the reflective mind. That while we are in execution mode, while we are in driving mode, to be able to take a step back, like go to the balcony and see what exactly we are doing, right? It's to develop a kind of awareness of the person in action. And the best piece of work I know is by Ronald Heifetz on the ambidextrous leadership, right? So he's a Harvard professor that talks about the need to look at both the big picture and the execution details, and to navigate both while in the thick of things, right? So that's one that I recommend. The other one is the wisdom of teams. The Wisdom of Teams, right, by John Kassenbach. So he used to be from McKinsey, and then wrote and research on leadership teams. So that's to your whole question about leading through others, getting the work done through others. And I find that whole model, really addresses the heart of working through others, to get things done. So those are two books or resources that have been very influential in my thought process, in the work I do. But there's underlying it is also another dimension, which is the spiritual dimension, right? I've always been in this spiritual development quest, where I have a keen interest in understanding the spiritual realm, and I find a lot of work that we do, ultimately what gives us life, what sustains us, has also to a spiritual aspect to it, and paying attention to that and paying attention to that development is equally important, and therefore the practice of mindfulness. In recent years, I'm sure you have heard of it, and that's where I draw a lot of insights as well.
It's interesting you are saying this because I hope it's not because of age. Because both of us are starting to really start to delve into such things and understand. Yeah, and I totally agree with what David just said. Sometimes, I guess when we mature to a certain level and we want to start thinking about who we really are in this universe, and this is where all these questions, seemingly tough questions, start to come about, right? And I totally understand where you're going with this, because I have recently been exposed a lot through friends, maybe through you as well, and through some other avenues, books and so on. The concepts about the spiritual mind, about our inner world, even quantum physics.
Exactly.
Things like this has been fascinating for me. Yeah. So, any last things you want to quickly tell our audience? Because we try to keep it around this length of time so far for this live stream. Anything you want to, maybe something personal, something like, why did you agree to come on this live stream?
Well, that's the thing that I wanted to end off with. I think it's what makes life interesting is really the human connections. And so, coming to this live stream was an invitation from you, right? To have to play at this on the day that leads to the weekend. And then so, I think that's a very important ingredient of life, to have good friends and to enjoy the friendship, and the memory that comes with it, right?
Yeah. Thank you so much, David, because it's a Friday night. You could be doing a lot more other things rather than hopping on the live stream with me. But in the spirit of what we have been doing, or what I've been doing with this live stream, I think it's about experimentation, daring to try something. And obviously, it's also like a discipline challenge for me. So this is day number, let me just put it up again. This is day number 18 of a 100-day challenge, and we have a very special guest today. So thank you so much, David. Please feel free to leave comments if you want to connect with David in any way, or if you want to ask David some other things. I'm happy to pass on the questions to him, right? And I also want to thank him for his time. And of course, he will be the first of many, hopefully, of other friends who will join us in this live stream, talk about anything under the sun, right? Anything that helps us grow as individuals, as human beings, and as fellow travelers in this huge spinning globe that is going around the sun every day, right? So thank you, David, for your time, and good night, everyone. I'm taking us out with a bit of music. Bye, David.
Thanks, BK.